In this clip, we're going to take a look at one of the Chapter 1 exercises in Excel. Particularly, we're going to look at the one on page 437 and 438. This is the calendar exercise. I've completed this by William J. Hitchcock. The completed date, you'll just enter that manually, so 6/23/2015 in this case. And today is, we used a function, the equal today function, which pulls in today's date. So later on what we'll do is we'll update the time, the minutes to complete. I'm guessing that this is going to take us approximately 20 minutes to do this particular spreadsheet. So what I've got is a starting point for the second problem exercise that we've got. This is the calendar, and up at the top it displays May 2016, and when you type in the words May 2016, Excel assumes that you're actually typing in a date. So it assumes the 1st of May in 2016. To get the calendar, that happens to fall on a Sunday, so we could just type in 1, and I could type in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and just type in all the days. Or better yet is we'll type in a formula where we take the previous day, add 1 to it, and copy that across for the rest of the week. Then for the next week, what we'll do is we'll type another formula and take the previous day and add 7 to that, copy that across, and paste it. And then I can take this second week, copy that one down to the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th week, and hit enter. So I've got this nice little calendar. It works fairly well, except I've actually got the 32nd, 33rd, 34th, and 35th of May, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so I'll highlight those cells, hit delete, and we've got the calendar done. Now the problem with this is it is kind of a hard-coded calendar. So if I save this, and say for instance instead of being May 1st, I want to try April. So we'll do April 2016, and April 2016 doesn't fall on a Sunday. Alright, and the reason I know that is I can do a couple things. One is I'm going to take this date, I'm going to format that slightly different. I'm going to format it using a long date, and I find out that April the 1st actually falls on a Friday. So what I want to do is get rid of these days and start where April begins on a Friday. So that looks good, but these days don't quite work. So let's see, maybe what I'll have to do is change my formula and say that this one actually equals the previous day and adds 1 to that. And then if I take this and add 1 to it and copy that across, that works slightly better. So now my formulas, if we go back to starting out in May, we'll have to update this again. Type in 1, type in my formula, add 1 to it, copy that across, and my calendar is slightly better than what I had before. Alright, what would be even nicer is if we could type in any starting month, say January 1st, 2016, and we find out that that one starts on a Friday, and have my calendar automatically update these days to show me where the 1st of the month is, and the rest of them will kind of all trickle through. So that's what we're going to try doing here. Alright, well, in order to do that, we need a few formulas. So I'm going to highlight some cells, delete this out, so that way I don't run into formatting issues. And I'm going to use a formula that's called the weekday formula. And what you do for the weekday formula is you reference a date. So for, in this case, January 1st, 2016. And find out that that happens to equal a 6. Ch01 2016, the weekday is a 2, meaning Monday happens to fall on the second day of the week. If I try May, we find out that it's 1. So for my weekdays, we've got Sunday, Monday, and I'm going to grab this and drag this across to extend that series. Sunday we said was 1, Monday was 2, and we'll drag that across. So hence Saturday is 7. And we can use that information to help us calculate out when the first of the day is going to show up on our calendar. Alright, next thing I want to do is I'm going to get rid of these formulas that I've got typed in here and replace it with something. I want to take, in this case, and just start out with Sunday, May 1st. Now I got a bunch of pound signs, which means that the format is a little bit too wide to display in that cell, but I really don't want to have a long date format. So I'm going to try a short date format. And there I got 5/1/2016. I'm going to use this format painter and paint my calendar days so they all look the same. And we'll say the previous cell plus 1, and I'll copy that across. And then for week 2, it's the previous Saturday plus 1 equals this cell plus 1. Copy that one across. And we can take this for the rest of my weeks. So what's kind of nice about this is it gives me the starting date May 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Looks like I'm getting all the correct days, and then actually this carries this out a little bit into June, which isn't all that bad. So far so good. Let's save our file. But now let's try a different month. Let's try 4/1/2016. Now in that case, we find out that April 1st is on a Friday, and really that's where I want to have the 1st. So this is where this table is going to come in over here. If the 1st of the month happens to fall on a Sunday, I want to start this cell out by just referencing the beginning date here. But in this case, it's a Friday. So what I want to do is I want to reference this date here, and this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days prior to that. So I want to start this first Sunday 5 days before the 1st. So what I'm going to do is say, if it's on a Sunday, it's 0. If it's on a Monday, I want to subtract a day. If it's on a Tuesday, we'll subtract 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and finally on a Saturday, 6 days. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change this formula and say it equals the starting date plus this offset that I have down here, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I should say 0, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and -6. So I'm going to look that up in this table. So I'm going to use an HLOOKUP function, a horizontal lookup function. And I want to look up the day of the week in my table. And I want to return the second row. And we need to make sure that this 6 exactly matches one of these numbers that it's looking up in the table. So I type in false. So when I do that, It actually starts out on March 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, and sure enough, there we go. Friday the 1st shows up in the correct spot. So let's try this with some other months just to test things out. Let's type it in our starting point, May again. Looks like that works. We how about March. And March 1st shows up correctly on Tuesday. We'll try February. And it looks like it's working pretty good. All right, a few things. Let's change some formatting around. So let's go back to our start, where we've got Sunday, May 1st. I really don't want to have that. I just want to have May 2016. So what I can do is I can use a different format. So I'm going to choose number formats, and I want to use my custom format. And for the format, I'm going to take this out of here, the type, and I want to get the month name, so 3 characters for the month, space, 4 digits for the year. And that way I can enter in a date and it formats it where I just display out the month and the year. So let's try again a different month, 1/1/2016, and we get Jan 2016. If you wanted the full name, do custom format, add another M to your format, and that way you get the whole month name listed there. I'm going to do the same thing here for these dates, and we're going to format these using a custom format. And I just want to show the month and the day number, so M/D. Hit OK, and that cleans that up, makes it look a little bit easier. Finally, I don't really want to boldface all of these days because some of them fall into December from the previous year. So I want to kind of take the emphasis off of those days and emphasize everything else that happens to fall in January 2016. Or let's try March to see how that works out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of my cells. I'm going to turn off the bold facing. I want to give them a light fill color, but then for all the March dates I want to boldface those, and I want to have those show up as kind of being white. So we can have this automatically do it for us by using conditional formatting. So here's my conditional formatting. We'll click on conditional format, set up a new rule. I want to use a formula to determine which cells to format. And my formula is the following. It's an if function. So I'll type in equals if, and I want to look at the month of my start day. So I need just the month of the start day. I'm going to leave that as an absolute reference, or in other words, the $sign in front of the A and the $sign in front of the 1, because I always want to reference that cell. If that's equal to the month of any one of my days in the calendar, I keep forgetting to type in the word month, any one of the days in my calendar. But in this case, I want that to be relative. In other words, when I copy this around, I want it to become A4, A5, A6, and so on. I want that date to change. So if that's true, I'm going to return 1, which means in Excel or in a computer language, it means true. If it's not true, we use 0, and we'll format this. So I'm going to format this, the font with bold facing, the fill with no color, hit OK, hit OK, and now I need to take my format painter and paint all of the cells in my calendar. And if we take a look at it, you can see the cells that aren't part of March have a light gray color and no bold facing. Everything else in March shows up as bold faced. Down when we get here to April, you can see that's not bolded anymore. I'm going to turn on my freeze panes, so that way if you scroll through the calendar you can still tell which day of the week each of these are, and we can see the month. So that looks pretty good. I want to check how this appears on the page layout. So I'm going to group my sheets first. Go to page layout. Go to print titles. Choose header and footer. For custom header, I want to type in my name. The center section, the course name. The right section, I want the date. Date printed, and I want the date using the insert date tool, so that way it always grabs it from the computer. Hit OK. For the custom footer, we type in the word file, a colon and a space, and I insert the file name. The center section, it's the word page, insert the page number, space, of, and the total number of pages in our workbook. For the right section, it's sheet, and we grab the sheet tab and hit OK. We can print preview this. There's my first page. Here's my second page, my third page. So that's not quite right. I'm going to have to change the orientation, but we're getting the right idea. So let's go back. Let's ungroup my sheets. Just by clicking on either one of the sheets, it'll ungroup them. Or you can right click and choose ungroup. That works as well. I want to change the orientation here to landscape. I want to go to print titles, go to margins. It would make sense to center this calendar horizontally and vertically on our page, and we'll take a look at it. Here's page 1, there's page 2. Page 3 are just these formulas that I used. I really don't want to include that as part of the printout. So the way I can avoid that is I'll take these cells, highlight all of those columns, right click, and hide them. If you want to see those in the future, just highlight anything to the left of it and the right of it, right click, unhide, and you can see those cells. Alright, so it's probably not a bad idea just to hide them, and that way you won't get that stuff printed out. So let's do that one more time. We'll select these cells, right click, and hide. Now when I hit Control Home to go back to my calendar, let's do a quick check on the print preview. There's my documentation sheet. There's the calendar. If you don't want the entire workbook, you can choose just do the active sheets only, and that way it'll print out just that. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Let's save this. Let's try making a copy of it. So I right click, move or copy sheet, create a copy, move it to the end, hit OK. Let's try a different month. Why don't we try, I don't know, September. And we'll try 9/1/2016 and see how September turns out, and it looks like that's working just fine. So that's how you can make your calendar just a little bit more flexible. Enter in a starting date like that. Take a look at some of these different formulas. If you want to see them quickly, you can hold your Control and tilde key, and it will display the formulas out there so you can see how everything works. hold Control and tilde and turn that back off, you should be all set.